Dear Sanaa, thank you so much for joining us today. You are our expert guest on the third episode of our podcast called Drip by Drip, Unveiling Fashion's Thirsty Truths. And I'm really excited to have you with us today because we have been working together for, it's around 2 years now.
About 2 years.
Exactly. And we have built really amazing projects together. And I'm really excited to share all of your insight and obviously expertise from Pakistan with our audience today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Amira. Thank you for having me, and thank you for giving Hisaar Foundation this opportunity as well.
Of course,
I'm
it's
really
my
excited. I'm really excited about this conversation, and I really look forward to especially the surprise question.
yeah. This is a fantastic question, and this is a fantastic introduction to our episode and our conversation because Kaveri from India, from the Indian organization Cividep, she is asking you the same question that she received from our contact and our partner in Bangladesh. And the question is, what in Pakistan are you doing in order to solve the water crisis for the communities, the textile communities? And is there one solution that can be adopted all over the country to basically find a solution or to fix this problem on a large scale?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way that the textile industries are working in Pakistan is that they all are so internally they have sustainability initiatives where they're implementing water saving techniques and trying to conserve water and recycle water and treat water within their factories. But as far as the communities go, what most textile industries do, and they've approached us as well, is so they basically cover kind of communities within a certain radius where their factory sites are. So that doesn't necessarily mean that the impact the coverage is that extensive, because it's limited within their units location, or where their factories are. And they're basically trying to provide clean drinking water. Textile industries are under a lot of scrutiny because we all know, I mean, how much the textile sector utilizes and perhaps even over consumes water. So that's their main objective, is to provide safe, clean drinking water to communities. And Hisaar Foundation steps in where we identify, well, we go and do site assessments of those communities, and then based on the need and the requirements of those areas, then we install a filtration plant or a reverse osmosis plant. Sometimes we dig boreholes as well. So it depends on what the need is. So in terms of long term and sustainable, it's not really that long term or that sustainable, because if the factory, for instance, shuts down, then that those the that the CSR effort will also shut down. It's not like it's going to be a permanent thing.
Yeah, I understand. And you've been working in the field of water. I mean, Hisaar Foundation is focusing on all matters related to water in general, and this is your field of expertise. So from your extensive experience working in that field, can you share with us what the most shocking fact about water is in Pakistan?
So Pakistan is home to the Indus Basin irrigation system, which is the world's largest contiguous irrigation system. It spreads across. It provides water to 1.6 million square kilometers across Pakistan, mostly in Punjab. And it consists of 3 big dams, 85 small dams, 19 barrages, and 12 link canals. But unfortunately, having all of this, Pakistan only has 30 days of storage capacity, and
Wow.
most developing countries have at least 1,000 days. So
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I'd
Crazy.
like to share. Yeah. So and agricultural sector is the largest sector, of course, in Pakistan. It still consumes almost 90% of our water resources, but it's also one of the largest where the most water wastage also happens, because 2/3 is lost in just delivery and system losses.
So is this the
Yeah.
reason why the capacity for water is so low? Why it's only so few days? Because the water gets lost in the process?
Yes, so it's also because it has three large dams, so that's basically our water storage capacity. Um, so we are not we do not we are not proponents of large dams. We're very much Hisaar Foundation is very much about building small storages,
Mhm.
and we believe that instead of building more storage, more like more large dams, we need to one repair the system, the existing system, fix the losses, right? Because if we
Mhm.
build another dam and we're losing the same amount of water in system and delivery, how is that going to help or improve the situation? This system is actually valued at 300 billion US dollars, so it is something worth investing and reinvesting. Like we should repair it and we should rebuild it as opposed to build something new.
Yeah, interesting. So, well, what would you say? How urgent is the water crisis in Pakistan with those numbers?
Water crisis is extremely urgent in Pakistan. I think the first reason why is because of the rapid population growth. We have very high birth rates. In fact, Pakistan's population is expected to be north of 300 million people by the year 2050. We're at 220 million right now. And as we all know, the water cycle is basically a closed cycle. So the quantum of water or the quantity of water which exists within the Indus Basin irrigation system is not going to increase, right?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but but because of the population growth, there's going to be massive, resource and water scarcity. So that's and depletion of water resources. And if you compound that with climate change impacts,
Mhm.
where you really with the global warming and the general increase in temperature and climate change impacts, we don't know how it's going to definitely, we know for certain that it's going to impact water resources. um, and with the increased global temperatures, so Pakistan and the Hindu Kush, Himalaya and Karakoram region is known as the third pole region, because this area has the largest polar and ice cap mass, up
Mhm.
second to like north and south poles. So with the
Wow.
you can imagine with the increased temperature increase, um, and global warming, how much glacial melt will occur. And that's also one of the main sources of our that feeds into the Indus River system. So on a long term basis, we're looking at uh, extreme population growth
Mhm.
and dwindling water supplies. So it's
Globally.
not a
I
it's
mean,
it's
in
yes,
Pakistan, but also
globally,
globally, right?
yes. So I think the resource scarcity will be the most urgent water crisis. And there is no focus on water treatment or water
Mhm.
recycling, which also leads to a lot of health issues, water quality problems as well.
Yeah.
um, so that's, I
Yeah.
think, in my mind, I mean, it's just something mind boggling to me that how do people not understand this.
Absolutely. And this is actually why we founded Drip by Drip 7 years ago, because exactly this is what strikes us most, even until today. Whenever we're in conversations with brands or companies from the textile sector in the West, obviously, they do not have a focus on water. And I mean, let's say 89% of them are not focusing on water yet. And we don't understand why there is such a big focus on carbon mitigation, which
Yes.
obviously is also important. I'm not trying to diminish the worst of this topic or the efforts, but at the same time, why are we not placing just as much effort in trying to reduce the water issues that we're having in the world. Do you know why?
I wish I knew the answer. No, we face the same struggle. We also tell everyone in Pakistan that yes, carbon is an important part of the conversation, but now we live in the age of adaptation. The age of mitigation is gone. We're way too late to now just focus on mitigating carbon or reducing carbon, because the carbon that's already in the atmosphere is going to stay in the atmosphere for about 1,000 years. So,
Yes.
and it's going to have an impact, right?
Yeah.
In water, but water resources need to be managed now. We need to improve governance now. It's an immediate intervention that can be made, and you can get immediate, I think, outcomes of it. Like you can, I think the effects and the impacts of interventions now will be seen in the short to medium term.
Yeah.
So we also believe that, in fact, we had our conference in November 2023. So Hisaar Foundation hosts a flagship event called Karachi International Water Conference. And our theme in November 2023 was bring water back to climate change discourse, because that was the whole idea, that we're only talking about carbon, but especially in countries like Pakistan, which are on the top 10 most vulnerable to climate change impacts. And all our climate change impacts will be manifested in water resources. So we keep telling people telling people, hey, you need to bring the conversation back to water. Think about water, because when you talk about climate change, it's going to impact on water.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
wish I knew the answer, but we're trying our level best here as well.
Yeah, we're trying to support from our side as well, for sure, on a
Yeah,
regular basis.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And one thing I'm wondering is, what are the direct consequences in terms of those water issues for textile workers in Pakistan right now? Can you share some of your experiences?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yes. So, what are the current consequences for the lives of the textile workers in Pakistan in light of this water crisis that the country is facing right now? So, how are their daily lives impacted by the lack of access to clean water, for example?
I think it's not limited to textile workers. I think
Mm-hmm.
it can be these impacts are felt across the spectrum. Um, and when I'm saying across the spectrum, I mean, low income areas, but I also mean affluent housing societies. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
water resource, like the resource scarcity is uh, kind of faced like throughout. So recently, I think about a month ago, a main pipeline burst, and therefore there was no water supply in the entire city, and everyone was like, what is going on? But those are the kinds of things that will happen more and more in the future. And especially in terms of communities, I'd like to highlight one thing, that the poor in Pakistan very unfortunately pay 10 times the price um, to purchase water, because what happens is that they purchase water from middlemen
Mm-hmm.
who who then sell to others, who then sell to the community. So whereas the affluent society, people living in like richer areas, they purchase directly from the company, the
Mm-hmm.
poor are purchasing from like three people down, not directly from the company, so they're paying a much higher price. So one, in terms of they're paying almost 10 times the cost for the same water. Two, the quality, there's
Mm-hmm.
also no guarantee of the quality, so it's not like they're paying 10 times for like good quality water,
Yeah.
because there are a lot of companies which just they've opened these water bottling companies, and they fill all kinds of water. If you test it,
Mm-hmm.
in fact, there are regular tests, and then it comes in the newspaper that like 100 companies, you should not be drinking. It's not safe drinking quality standard water that they provide. But the poor don't have access to that kind of information. So waterborne diseases is a massive, major
Mm-hmm.
issue. Um, um, Unfortunately, it also leads to deaths, because there's
Yeah.
just not even we don't even have a health infrastructure to support our waterborne disease, like to help people who are suffering from waterborne diseases. And sometimes it's so bad that there are no hospital beds.
Mhm.
So that's I think, so it's not necessarily just textile workers. I
Yeah.
think it's communities across the spectrum. But
Yeah.
that's really, those are the two main issues. Drinking water quality is just terrible.
Yeah, that leads me to in a project of yours. You are setting up an institute in Karachi, if I'm informed correctly, to be able to test the water sources or water, like any water sources, more thoroughly. Can you explain why that institute is such an important project that Hisaar is following, and what can be changed if that institute would be in place?
Yeah, okay. So Panjwani Hisar Water Institute is like a dream project of our
Mhm.
founder of Hisaar Foundation. Um, and there are three. It's under a public-private partnership. So there are three entities that essentially are overseeing the project. There's NED University, which is like Karachi's biggest public sector university,
Mhm.
and his Panjwani Hisar Water Institute is housed within the university, and once completely built, will become a part of the university. Then Panjwani Charitable Foundation is the seed donor, so
Mhm.
they have the name. And Hisar Foundation brings its intellectual capital and 20 years of background work in the water
Mhm.
sector. So, the water quality testing lab, which we are setting up, which will provide a 360-degree solution to water quality tests in one location, is just one of the 5 labs that we're setting up.
Mhm.
um, so just to give a little bit of context, right now in Pakistan, there is no one place where you can send a single sample of water to get a biological analysis, a chemical analysis, or a pathogen analysis. For those different kinds of analysis, you need to send samples of water to different entities.
Mhm.
So that's something that we want to do under one roof. So that's why we're setting up the total water quality testing lab. Linked to that is the water ecology and remediation lab. So we will try to, once we discover what pollutants and pathogens are in the water quality samples that we receive, we will try to create, we will try to get, through ecological and nature based solutions, try to treat that water.
Mhm.
And we want to try to stay away mostly from chemicals. So it's going to be mostly ecological and nature based, remedial, kind of cleaning of water. Then we have the water data analytics and modeling lab, which will
Mhm.
basically generate data and do simulations and see how, the how what the for instance, how the Indus River system will change in the next 30 years. we
Mhm.
have the we have the coastal and riverine hydraulics lab. This is also something new we're bringing to Pakistan, because Karachi is on a coast, and not a lot of work is done on coast. So that's
Mhm.
something that we're doing as well. And then we have the water psychology and behavioral sciences lab, which is again in innovation that we're bringing to Pakistan, but probably to the world, where we're going to focus psychology and behavioral sciences lab on, specifically on water usage, water management, and water and behavior regarding water consumption. Because we all know water is precious. Even everyone knows this, but still, the way that it's wasted. So we want to try to understand why this happens, and then using the lab, we want to develop messages to try to change human behavior. Because, like I said, it's the age of adaptation, and we have to change the way we live. Business as usual just cannot go on, with the way things are going in future, with us not even meeting the 1.5 degrees centigrade mark. So we know that there will definitely be changes in the water regimes and water resources globally as well. So the idea being that we have one foot in academia, one foot in industry.
Mhm.
So we want to cater to the increasing demands of the industries, so that they have the capacity and the personnel to make the changes that are needed to
Mhm.
improve the situation. So, and we're trying to develop person power, so that Pakistan can solve its water problems for at least the next 100 years on its own.
Yeah.
And yes, eventually, all our work will trickle down, and it is going to have downstream impacts, because ultimately we want to bring change on we want to bring change on the ground. So
Yeah. And you will, for sure,
I hope so.
with that
Yes.
initiative. No,
Yeah.
definitely. So this whole institute will more or less focus on man-made water issues. But what about climate change and natural disasters? Because obviously in the news we hear a lot about floods in Pakistan and other climaxes of climate change. What do you think how the whole textile industry, as this is the main industry we're focusing on in this podcast, will change in the next 10 years in Pakistan due to climate change, but also the water crisis?
I think, the textile industry might have to change drastically, because we might have a resource like the input, which is cotton in the textile industry. We don't know. I mean, if there's flooding and if the cotton crops get destroyed, then we may need to move to synthetic fibers. But then moving to synthetic fibers, is it the best solution? So there's going to be a lot of conversations, very difficult ones, perhaps very hard decisions to be made. But we have to wait and see, because with global warming and climate change, the oceans are also rising. And Pakistan it's on the brink of the Arabian Sea, and Sindh especially, which is the cotton growing region, that shares the whole that shares
Water.
the water, the coast. So
Yeah.
if water is rising there, then what will happen to the land? Is it going to be submerged? So we will be with the Pakistan floods of 2022. We when we were doing our recovery and rehabilitation project in Johi, which is in a smaller area within the Dadu district, which is also a cotton growing region. We discovered that there's no place for the water to go. The drainage is completely blocked, because the parks, there's been a lot of urban development without taking into account the natural waterways and the natural pathways. So the water has nowhere to drain. So that land was still submerged 6 months after the floods had stopped. So those kinds of things, if that coincides with the cotton growing season, for instance, then what do you do? So I think those are the kinds of impacts that the textile industry will face. And Pakistan's precipitation and rainfall regimes are changing. Karachi has rains like the monsoon season. Not monsoon, but tropical. Like we have cloud bursts. Karachi's never had cloud bursts. We're not built, the city is not built for cloud bursts. We don't have like 200 millimeters of rain over 2 hours. We just never had that in the past. But over the last 5 years, we've seen that happens, and the city completely gets inundated, and everything shuts down, because there's just no. Our cities our infrastructure is not built for that volume of water in a short period of time.
Yeah. So the cities will have to adapt too at some point.
Yeah, the infrastructure will have to change. Maybe do rainwater harvesting, anything. I mean, there could be drill holes. I think they're called. I can't remember. There's a term where you drill a hole so that you at a depression, so all the water flows down.
Yeah.
But those kinds of interventions will have to be done.
Yeah, interesting. So to come to a more utopian side or utopian vision for the textile industry, with all those struggles that we talked about for textile workers, but obviously the whole population of Pakistan, but you also mentioned cotton farmers, with all the challenges they face, what do you think would happen to Pakistan if the world would immediately stop to buy new clothes and to obviously then have to produce new clothes? Because this is something we in the West discuss a lot, that we need to refrain from buying new clothes because we're producing 100 billion new items each year, which obviously are not necessary to cover the people we have on this planet at this moment. So what if we just stop buying new clothes and just recycle or just buy secondhand, for example? What impact would that have on Pakistan and the textile industry in Pakistan?
I think it might be in a utopian world, but I think it has both pros and cons. And in the Pakistan context, it perhaps may have more cons than pros, because it would lead to loss of livelihoods. People, it would have a lot of ramifications in terms of socio-economic impacts, I think. So I don't know if that would be the best solution, or I don't think it would be the best solution for Pakistan if the world suddenly stopped buying clothes, because there are countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, they produce cheap clothing, right? So if the Western world decides, hey, we're not going to buy any new clothes, then there would be massive economic losses, livelihood losses, um, uh, deterioration of lifestyles also. Uh, so I don't know if that's the best solution.
Yeah, no, I understand. So we talked about
Perhaps,
mm-hmm.
more from a water perspective. Yes, reduce your water footprint, reuse water, recycle water, but on a uh, on a more large scale, not just limited to like a single factory. And so most of the sustainability measures and the efforts that happen within Pakistan is, I think, spearheaded by international, um, so to speak, sponsors, right? So if an international company like H&M, for example, is buying their denim or something from a Pakistani factory, they are the ones putting that pressure that you need to meet these requirements. But that that's not a sustainable solution. It has to be a long term. I think a policy intervention perhaps would be a better way to go, rather than just say, you know what, we're going to stop buying new clothes altogether. Because that would also, if you think about it, fashion, I mean, art, they would be it would create a lot of losses, I think. Not just
Probably.
it would not just be a positive thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. And actually, also our guests from India and Bangladesh agree with you. They basically made the same points.
Yeah.
So obviously, the brands have power, such as the consumers, because they can decide what they buy. But what about the governments and legislation? In 2012, there was a fire at Ali Enterprise in Pakistan, which killed almost 300 people, which is kind of relatable, or which we can relate to the Rana Plaza tragedy that occurred in Bangladesh. Do you feel like regulations in Pakistan are in place to support the industry or the workforce, basically, and maybe even the water issues? Or is it a lack of laws or a lack of enforcing the laws? Like, what's the situation like in Pakistan?
So the Ali Enterprises fire shocked the city, In fact, you can see the remains of that burnt factory. So it's on the way to the beach. So every time we go to the beach, you can actually still see that factory.
Wow, it's 13
And
years ago and you can still see it.
you can still see it. Yeah. So Pilar spearheaded this effort. I think it was able to get compensation from the main company to up to like a $1 million or something for the victims, for the families of the victims of the fire. But unfortunately, there's been no long term or systemic change after that. The situation still remains the same. Workers are still exploited. Working conditions are still quite bad. there are no exits, those kinds of things. I think those were the reasons why there were no safety standards in place, and that's why the fire caused loss of so many lives. And I unfortunately, even so many years later, there's not been any real systemic change. And I think it's not lack of implementation, it's more lack of laws. There's no
Mhm.
law in place.
So
Although
governmental
there have
willingness.
been efforts, but yeah, governmental willingness. That's one of the main reasons for most of Pakistan's problem, that we just don't have the political will.
Yeah, I would say that this is the same in Germany for other topics, but yeah, it's such a pity, because I always wonder why a government wouldn't have the best interest of their country and population at mind and heart whenever they have to take decisions. But yeah, I guess that's a global issue.
But I think here, again, like Pakistan, it's more dynastic
Mm,
politics.
yeah.
There are just certain families that have just been ruling for so many years, and the same, even bit the government's gonna like get recycled between each other, right? So one time you have the Bhutto administration, then another time you have the Nawaz Sharif administration. So it's just a kind of
Yeah.
shuffling of the same people. So what can we say? It's sad,
Yeah.
but they lack political will.
Absolutely.
They only look at massive infrastructure projects.
Yeah.
So
Such a pity.
policies is not something that they're really looking at.
Yeah. So, but on a grassroots level, there's obviously a lot we can do. And a project that we collaborate on is called Wash for Schools, where Hisaar Foundation implements wash facilities and a water filter at school premises to allow the students to actually being able to focus on studying and learning, because they have access to clean water, and the hygienic situation becomes better through the washing, hand wash facilities, and there is a gardening program. When we first met and got in touch, this is the project that you mainly highlighted would bring real like change and benefit to the communities. Could you maybe quickly share why this project, like focusing not on factory communities or factory premises, but on schools, why this has the biggest impact in your mind?
Yeah, I think Wash for Schools is a highly, highly impactful project, and we are really grateful to the support given to us by Drip, that we are able to do something which has a long term impact for the country. So the Wash for Schools, when we first went into these schools, when we did assessments, there were many schools where we found that there were bathrooms that were created, but they were used as garbage dumps.
Mhm.
So there was no washroom facilities for the girls or the boys, which led to a lot of dropouts, a very high dropout ratio, especially after girls certainly turned a
Mhm.
certain age. How can they attend school if they don't have proper
Yeah.
um, toilets and wash facilities, right? So we had implemented these projects earlier as well in Karachi, and we really realized the impact that it creates in communities. And so that's why that's the project that we had proposed to Drip by Drip. And now when we go into these schools, the classes are full. I mean, we get this kind of feedback that they're not the children are not sick because they're
Mhm.
drinking good, safe, clean drinking water. They have proper wash facilities that they can use, and they maintain the kitchen gardening or the community gardens that they maintain also gives them a sense of civic sense, all those
Mhm.
kinds of things. And I think mostly is that we are giving we're providing for the children, and the children are the future of this country. So if at this young age we can instill these values of hygiene,
Mhm.
cleanliness, a civic sense, then hopefully the hope is that when they grow up they'll keep these values with them, and also then improve their own environment and their conditions. And children are like the best champions of change. So when you tell, especially if a teacher or a teacher tells a child you must wash your hands, it's something that it just sits in the head. And if a teacher tells a child, go tell your family what you learned in school, then I mean, like kids will tell their parents, close the tap, there's a leak,
Mhm.
fix the leak. So those kinds of things to make children champions of change is one of the indirect impacts of this project as well. And that's why I feel that there's a long term benefit that we were providing to the communities, to the children, to the teachers, and the parents. Because we also, within when we rehabilitate wash facilities within government schools, we also tell them that this water is for the nearby communities. So then they maybe they put a tap outside the school, and they or turn it on at certain times so that there's no rush inside the school premises. So which has definitely led to increased like healthier people, and less sickness and waterborne diseases and things in communities.
Yeah, we
And
are
we want
very.
to replicate it across the country. We're just really excited about this project, that we're looking for more partners and supporters to be able to replicate it across the country, because I think we fixing the public schools, um, the infrastructure in the public schools, there's nothing like it.
Yeah. No, we will definitely do our best to also further support this, and we hope we can allow for many more of those projects to be implemented, because we also believe that this is a fantastic project with an amazing outcome that we didn't
Yeah.
even expect in the beginning. So, Sana, thank you so much for taking the time today. We are already coming to an end of our episode, and I would like to ask you a very last brief question. Unfortunately, I do not know who our next guest on the podcast will be yet, because we are still in the planning phase of the second part of the season. But can you please share a question with me, which I can take with me for our next guest?
Yeah. So I had to think about this, because you had said that just come up with anything or anything that we discussed. So I've been thinking about how there's going to be a shift, or there has been a shift towards eco-conscious, affordable clothing, and how perhaps, like, how will there be a balance between sustainable production practices and changing consumer behavior, and how will it reshape the future of the textile industry? How do they see the textile industry changing due to these factors of environmentally conscious consumers, and a focus on sustainable production practices? Because sustainability, it comes at a cost. So
Yeah,
how do they balance, and how do they see this shaping up in the
perfect.
future?
Fantastic. I will take this question with me and ask our next guest, and then send the answer back to you.
I would love to hear it.
Definitely, I will keep it in mind. Promise. Thank
All
you
right.
so much, Sana, for your time and sharing your experiences and expertise with us. It was a wonderful episode, and I'm very, very happy and lucky that we can continue to work together. Hope to see you soon.
Yes, I would love to meet you in person. And
Me too.
we're again very grateful for the support given to us by Drip, and we look forward to a long term partnership. And thank you
Same for
very
us.
much for having me on this podcast. I really enjoyed myself.
Thank you so much. Me too. Have a wonderful day.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.